Rand.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Give Me Rent podcast. Today, it's just me, Brandon, actually joined with one of my good friends, Hailee Donne. And if you guys want to throw a follow, if you're into football, she's on TikTok at Halftime with Hailee, and on Instagram, she's at _ She Knows Ball. So we both actually just got out of the Stranger Things finale. A lot to unpack here, a lot. I mean, we just finished, 9 years of pop culture, crazy to even think that the show's over. So I think we're going to talk about the cons of this first. There's way too many pros. I think compared especially to past 3 episodes, I wouldn't say disappointment, but not living up to expectations. I think this succeeded what we were expecting in a lot of ways. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I know there's a lot of mixed reviews about Volume 2 because it wasn't as, intense as maybe people thought it would be. And I feel like they were doing that purposely to keep the finale as jam-packed as it was, and it very much was. As for cons, if we want to get into cons of the finale, I really was expecting more people dying, to be honest with you. I feel like the Duffer Brothers get a lot of heat for not killing off main characters. And honestly, I feel like they just kind of proved that with the finale. Even we can unpack the whole 11's ending. That's a lot to unpack, but even minus 11, any of the other, the kids, I honestly thought one of them were going to be gone. I thought Steve was going to be gone, but yeah, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, the 11 thing is, Mike's a storyteller, as you see, when he's talking about what's essentially alluding to their futures, but the whole point, I think, of 11's story is we know she's dead. Deep down, I think the idea of her isn't. And I think that's why he tries to make it seem like she's going off and living this life that, that they, entitled or not entitled, but they pictured together. They always talked about the waterfalls and it's her there. So I think it's him in his head, trying to not grieve, but kind of the idea of she's in a better place. And I think there's a reason why also he went to the memorial statue before graduation. If she was really alive, those meaningful moments would not have happened. And I feel like it would also have taken away, and I think the Duffer Brothers know better to do something like that. Yeah, all the characters have plot armor. People complain. I've complained about it. But I think it would have taken away the significance of 11 throughout this entire show and the significance of, this episode specifically. I mean, you're wrapping up your, Netflix's biggest product. I mean, this thing sent shockwaves throughout how shows were produced and, put onto streaming. I think that is such a bad idea just to even allude that she could still be alive in any way.
No, I totally agree. I feel that was the whole kind of point. Even if she did a theory that they have to, make themselves feel better to kind of, I guess, give closure to the whole ending for the kids to accept the whole scenario. But I do agree. The reason she was supposed to sacrifice herself was so that this doesn't continue. And they obviously do show with the whole kryptonite sound, and I just thought it was a little far-fetched, the whole Callie thing, how it was her having everyone see 11, because obviously 11 wasn't doing all those powers, because I just don't understand how Callie would still be alive to do that. The girl got shot in the stomach. I get it, but it definitely was not, I guess, my favorite part of the finale.
Agreed. And I do want to say one thing with Joyce, and it's not just with these, past couple episodes, and some people argue seasons, but I feel like her dialogue and acting was very stale, and even same with Will. There was a lot of times where, your character should have a proper tone or proper way of speaking when, there's action or moments of emotion, but it felt like a lot of things were forced to be done differently than it has been in the past. I feel like Will was not just it did not feel natural out of the ways he said and did things. And it felt like some of the lines and dialogue just did not mesh well with the time period of what was even going on.
Yeah, just his whole acting, in general, you think? Yeah. I have agreed with that, because I think that, Noah Schnapp was a great actor in especially seasons, I mean, it really wasn't in season 1, but season 2, he was phenomenal. And then I feel like just as it kind of progressed, his acting kind of degressed. So I definitely agree on that. Because you do kind of notice that, especially with how amazing some of the other actors are. Sadie, Jamie Campbell Bower is phenomenal. His acting was, in my opinion, the best in the show. Holly, I forget what the actor's name is. She was great too, but I kind of definitely agree. And now that you mention it about Joyce, Winona Ryder, I can see where you're coming from with that.
100%. And, the other thing I thought was a little weird was just kind of, I don't want to say it felt forced. Moments are supposed to be awkward in show. I mean, even in life, you're not going to know what to say. But I feel like Byers and Steve's just interaction at the end on why they don't like each other, it felt like it could have been done better. Duffer Brothers are capable, I thought, of more. But other than that, I really think there wasn't as many cons in this episode besides, what we've listed.
No, yeah, exactly. I do, kind of going off that, I do love how when Steve almost fell off the tower, it was Jonathan that caught him. Yeah. I love that. I thought that was good. But yeah, no, I feel like they just kind of needed to solidify that relationship with them. It was like a sweet moment, but no, I agree.
And now I think we got to talk about the pros of this episode. There's a lot. I want to talk about just the build-up overall in the beginning before anything really happened. I mean, right off the jump, we have a lot going on. I mean, a lot of interactions, the explosives. It's just crazy to think of, this build-up. It's not just the build-up throughout the season, but like the past 9 years. And, just the plan didn't go as, well with Vecna and everything, the action sequences. I mean, I had a lot of memorable scenes, but one thing I want to talk about is specifically the ending, because I feel like we have to highlight that before anything else. I mean, just a montage of all of them growing up throughout the show, it makes you realize one thing. Not only did we see them grow up, but if, the show's been out 9 years. I'm 24 now. I was 15 when the show came out. It made me realize that as much as we were watching them grow up, we were growing up with them the entire time, and we didn't realize it. And I think that's what made it so emotional, is not even the scenes with Eleven and Mike before she, dies. It made it so emotional because that's it. Like, you watch them grow up. You watch the story really, like, the chapter close, the entire book.
No, exactly. Like, yeah, I'm 25, so this show came out when I was, a sophomore in high school. Now I'm, 3 years graduated out of college. And even just when they did flashback to the earlier seasons, just seeing how young they were, it just really tugs on your heartstrings even more, because I really liked how they kind of just panned out everyone's like ending after the show, giving everyone at least an idea of where everyone's kind of headed, with the conclusion of the show. So I really did like how they just kept flashing back and forth. Even throughout the whole episode, really, they were showing a lot of, scenes from past seasons, which I liked a lot.
Yeah, a lot of parallels. But I think it sounds awful when I was like happy, I guess, when Callie died. But I feel like talking about the action sequences throughout this episode, I thought was phenomenal. I mean, the beginning, you have them storming where Hopper and all of them are right before, Callie's death. I think the dialogue exchange between a lot of these characters, and even it felt like very threatening, like there really were stakes on the line, I guess, when he was threatening to kill her and shoot her eventually.
Yeah, like, I feel like Hopper being, I guess, suspicious of her, you could kind of figure it as he knows what Callie's mindset is, being like, you have to sacrifice yourself to end this whole thing. And obviously he doesn't want to lose, Hopper doesn't want to lose his daughter. So I kind of get that grudge he holds against her, that kind of just suspicion towards her. I do feel like Callie redeemed herself like a little bit, but I know that she's definitely not a fan favorite. But I don't know, it kind of just goes back to the part where if you think 11 is alive or not, it's like, yeah, that could be her like kind of redeeming herself in a way. But I don't know, I wasn't upset when she really died. It made sense in a way.
No, it definitely did. I mean, you're bringing back, one of the characters from debatably the worst season of the show, and having her ulterior motives and just how she carried herself, or I guess how they wrote for how to act was, I know, very frustrating. Not for me, but a lot of the fans. And being a part of this fan base, and everyone's a part of the fan base, whether you interact with everyone else or not. And I mean, everybody was expecting all these deaths to happen. I'm kind of happy that we did not get 5 deaths, 4 deaths. Like, I think, yeah, it shows they have plot armor, like no one's going to die. The Duffer Brothers just can't bring themselves to kill somebody major. But would we really want to see that? And starting to think about it, how would the ending have, wrapped up? I think it's the way that they handled it is phenomenal. Like, I really do. I think killing off a big character would have caused a lot of controversy. A lot of people might not have liked it, and I think it would have hurt the ratings. So I think the way they did it was great. But the action sequences of Callie dying, I thought was great. Watching, Murray blow up the helicopter. I think we were ready for him to honestly jump off with it.
Yeah, no, I honestly thought that too. That was so sick, honestly. I feel that's exactly what kind of needed to happen in that moment. And going off of what you were saying about killing off main characters, I know my brother, at least when we watched Volume 2, thought that, and I also saw it online, that when Jonathan and Nancy were in that room with all like the goo stuff pouring in and they did like their breakup scene, he thought that they were gonna die and that would have like made sense. And I thought about it and I could see how that could have been impactful, but then that would have just thrown everything off. It's like Will would have just lost his brother, Mike would have just lost his sister. That would have just been a completely different plot line. So I do understand why they kept everyone, especially for the last fight. Like, I'd be pissed if these characters were killed off right before easily the biggest fight of the show. Yeah. So it definitely does make sense. I just thought they were going to maybe kill them during that fight, or at least maybe one other person. But I get what they did.
Yeah, and just in going throughout, the rest of the episode, I think the sequence between, talking about action, but Hopper versus Vecna in his mind and killing 11, allegedly, from what he saw, such a turning point, I think, of the episode that nobody really expected for something like that to even happen. I mean, him being able to dig into 11's memories and just see, I'm going to expose Hopper for this exactly. And I think that was, one, it's really smart of him as a villain. That's what I really liked about him. It's just very versatile thinking out of him. But that had everyone gasping that, wow, the person who wanted to protect her the most killed her. Mm-hmm. Even though he didn't, I thought that was a great scene. I don't know.
No, Hopper is one of my favorite characters. I just feel like his whole, just arc of his character with what he's been through and how protective he is and just really coming out of, being essentially just, a burnout, just who lost his daughter to easily being the character that helps the group the most, obviously, besides 11. He is such just, a strong character in just those, fighting scenes. And I honestly loved how they had Vecna get into Hopper's mind. It is really cool. I like they did that a lot this season, even just seeing characters go into the Upside Down for the first time, seeing Vecna for the first time. And it was just Vecna was just getting into Hopper's mind, being like, your first daughter died because, you had those chemicals in you and she got cancer and she died. And, you are going to be the reason why your other daughter dies, just knowing exactly which buttons to push to really just get into his head. So I thought that was really well done. I was hoping, I think for a second I thought maybe he did actually shoot her, but I wasn't surprised when I saw that it was just in his mind. It made sense, but no, that whole scene was insane.
Yeah, I had a feeling something else was going on, especially when you saw that 11 was still, with Max and everybody completely fine and she didn't feel any pain. So once I saw that, I'm like, okay, something's up here. It's got to be an illusion of some sort. But seeing him go out of the usual suspects of him mentally tormenting them, it was very, very not out of character, but just very unique out of him as a tactic. I mean, going after Hopper specifically, going after just a regular civilian that has nothing to do with his plans. No Maxine, no Will. Obviously not 11. She's not part of the plans, but he went into, Hopper's mind. That was very, very interesting. And I do like that he did that, though. It shows you, I guess, how powerful he really can be, and it just doesn't matter. He holds it towards his mission only. But, yeah, a lot with Vecna to unpack also. His fight scene was awesome, but just the whole thing with the kids in his childhood house and just the whole fighting scene, with 11 and him to begin with before anything else in the house, I thought was great. Choreography looked phenomenal, but, small little fight, but seeing him go through the trauma to get through that cave, to go through the mine shaft, seeing him, kill somebody as a child for the first time, we didn't expect him to react that way. And it's awesome that all these mysteries that they've had over the seasons and even this, volume 1 and 2, but getting to see what was in this briefcase, getting to see what really happened to him, and Will trying to tell him, oh, the mind flares got you, but knowing that it's free of will, that he's just doing it as a partnership, I thought was really cool. You just get to really see a villain for what it is. It's not like he's corrupted or a broken person. He wants to see the world burn, and I think it's very obvious what he wanted to do.
Yeah. No, and I really liked the scene where, Vecna was in the cave reliving the moment where he opened the briefcase and really got all his powers and everything. And I liked when Will was talking to him through his mind, being like, you're just like me. the mind flayer is like in your mind, like you don't have to act like this, and then you just really know. I know there was a lot of theories that Vecna was actually good, and I wasn't a big fan of that theory. I don't think that would have played out well. So it was cool to see how, yeah, he knows that the mind flayer is controlling him, but he just is deep down a terrible person and just knows that he's just so caught on creating, destroying the world that he knows how powerful it makes him, and there really was just no going back for him. But I loved how we just got to know more about how he became the way he became. And I saw the Stranger Things play, which is a whole nother conversation, but it briefly touched on that. But I like how the finale went more in depth on how he really got to be, because we know that all the other numbers got their powers because they had Henry's blood in them. So it was really cool to go more in depth on how kind of really it all began. So I like that a lot. It was good.
Me too. And just, fast forwarding, I guess, to the final battle, because I think that's the biggest thing to highlight. I don't want to say the final battle was underwhelming, not Vecna and 11, but just the fact that, we have a physical mind flare. It's so weird to think that this entity was so powerful and he got taken down by a bunch of kids with like no real experience, which is not like a bad thing. You really would have wanted something more supernatural to combat that. I understand Vecna being like part of the vessel, but not. And obviously 11 doing damage to him does not help the mind flare because it's a partnership. But I thought it was cool, but also underwhelming because, and it's not a dig at these characters, but the whole point of it is they are nerds that, save the world. And realistically, anyone could save the world. Like, it's not me going at a group or something like that, but just seeing kids that were just not from season 1 to now, but that were not physically made to attack something on this scale level do it. And yeah, but basically it's just crazy to think that they could have probably extended a little bit more. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that or disagree, which is fine, but I definitely felt like it was a little underwhelming, that battle with the physical mind flare.
Yeah. See, honestly, I totally understand where you're coming from, because these are just like a group of normal civilians taking on a freak of nature. For me, I thought the final battle was absolutely insane. I loved the way that they did it, and I loved the part where Will was talking to Vecna. They were all like, Steve and Dustin were underneath him, like, stabbing him with the thing there with the flamethrowers on top. Like, everyone's doing different things, and we're like, I'm not afraid of you anymore. We're not afraid of you anymore. Like, I loved that they knew what was at stake, and they just came together and just put their all into it, like all gas, no brakes. I honestly really, really did like that whole final fight scene. The best part, in my opinion, I loved how, and I thought Winona Ryder's acting was really great when she chopped Vecna's head off, because I feel like you can read in her face, like, you put me through absolute hell. You put everyone through hell. That was also a great scene where they showed how everyone was affected by the Upside Down, all the monsters, like, individually, but then Joyce being the one, and what did she say? She said, like, you fucked with the wrong family. I loved that part, and she just finished it once and for all. That I really like how they did that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It was more of just the mind flare thing I thought was not the best, but it was enjoyable. But the Vecna fight, like you said, I loved it, Vecna and 11, especially how Winona Ryder acted. You see a lot of her emotion with killing Vecna and finishing it off. And, the montage does help overall. Just seeing all this trauma that everybody endured, all these other deaths. I mean, it's always going to help. If they didn't have it, I feel like it wouldn't have been as memorable. It would have been a lot, quick chop to the head. But the mother doing it, the mother that has gone through being crazy, going through all this shit. I mean, you really see her at the lowest of the low when Will is missing. And now having her family back together, not wanting them to be ripped apart. And she's putting the nail in the coffin. She's ending it. And I really did like that scene. And I think there's a reason why that, in our theater, the crowd really gave such an applause to it. And, I'm not one to clap at theaters, just seeing everyone, like, mutually agree, though, that this was a compelling scene for the character.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think we had a great audience, first of all, because everyone was very reactive, not, like, too obnoxious. I also have to add, when Derek pulls Holly back into the cave and he gave him the finger and says, suck a fat one, and everyone went crazy. I thought that was amazing. That was so funny. I love that part, how everyone reacted to that. But, yeah, no, I think that I was worried how they were going to go about killing Vecna, because obviously you're going to think they're going to kill Vecna. Like, that's how the show is going to end. And I was nervous that they were going to do that justice, because Vecna is just such an insane villain. It's so hard to really actually kill him, especially since how much his powers have grown from season 4 to season 5. So I think just the way that everything was handled was great. It's really interesting to see the hive mind and everything, how, you know, when Vecna was tossed down from being hung up, you see the mind flayer go down. So I always liked the whole hive mind situation. And I loved how that part when Will, you know, taps into Vecna's mind and just kind of like takes control, just like everyone's all coming together and utilizing everything they can to really get the job done. I'm happy it wasn't just singular people. Everyone played a part, which I like how they did that.
I agreed. There's so much that I really wish that we could have gone. I feel like there could have been scenes extended, I guess, per se. Like, with all these time jumps, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of dialogue left out, you know? I really want to know what was going on when Max got captured in them. It's like, you know, some people, it's not a lot of dialogue or it doesn't mean much, but they saw what their, quote-unquote, the soldier said their homework was laying out there. You have that showing to, you know, okay, like, what's their thoughts on what's really going on? What's their opinion on what these kids figure out that the military obviously hasn't? You know, they're so focused on making a super army and trying to manipulate this power that Eleven and Callie had, but what do they think there? Hopper killed all these military men, blew up military property in, you know, the Upside Down, and they're all captured. Elle dies. It's like, what happens then? How do they just, like, let go? Oh, because it's classified and they don't want to leak it? They could have easily just arrested them, court-martial, like, whatever they wanted to do. Like, at the end of the day, what happened? Why are they okay? Why is everything fine? Did the kids get questioned? Were they forced to, you know, go into a room with one-on-one interviews? Like, I feel like that's a lot of important details, because when a military operation like that's going on with Supernatural, they tend to record everything. And Dustin and them, years of doing this, years of research written down, like, all this stuff probably was documented by, you know, their fictional government, you know, but I would have liked to have seen a little couple of minutes of that a little bit extended. You know, I do like the time jump. I think, yeah, you have to do that. You can't just, you know, go into and end it on that. You have to go to the graduation. But what are all these things that were not filled in? That's just my thoughts.
No, yeah, and I didn't even think about that, but it totally does make sense, because obviously the government thinks that 11 is the one causing all this, or not even necessarily. They just maybe not even care about all the other things. They don't know what Vecna had planned. They just want 11. They want her blood. They want to create more numbers and whatnot. So, but no, it is so true how Hopper just killed all these, you know, soldiers, and then Murray blows up a helicopter, and they just kind of let them off the hook. They don't say, oh, you can't tell someone this, and that. I'm sure they, like, did. I guess the Duffer Brothers thought it wasn't as, I guess, important of a plot line to open up, but I do get where you are coming from, how that was kind of left unsaid. Time jumps are always, I guess, risky, because there's always going to be stuff left unsaid.
I liked it in this case.
Yeah.
I really did.
No, yeah, I definitely did. Like, I like how they were at the graduation. I honestly thought that maybe it's because Hopper already lost one of his daughters, but I thought we were going to see more emotion from Hopper, especially because he was like, I'm not blowing anything up unless I know that you're safe. And then we just see him 18 months later, and he's, of course, upset, but, you know, he's obviously happy, but then he talks about acceptance and all that. But, yeah, no, I feel like that was a little bit untouched about how truly affected Hopper was.
No, I agree. I really did wish there was more emotion, but I also, it kind of gets to, you know, you kind of get reminded, especially with the flashbacks during the graduation, but Hopper sadly has been through this before. You know, he's been through a lot of grief, the guy, and I think this is his way, especially back then. You know, it's different than now with mental health and how it's highlighted, but the guy's seen some shit. So I think the whole point of it is just he's masking it, he's accepting it. And I also think that's why, back to the theory of Elle somehow being alive still, I just think it's Mike writing one of his stories to cope. But I think that's the reason why when him and Mike have that, you know, sit-down talk before graduation is like, she is dead. You know, what would she want you to do? Blah, 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 all this. Like, if she was alive, he would have been like, you know, she's still alive. She's just somewhere else right now. Like, she would have wanted you to walk. Like, no. He's talking to him as if she is dead. And that's something to pick up on is, as a father, especially since it's emotional when she says that, you became my father. Like that tug at the heartstrings, I can't even lie, even for me. It makes you really think the connection that all these characters had, and they had to move forward, and then just kind of highlighted just the importance of this graduation for them. You really think like they were kids doing adult things this entire show.
Oh, yeah. Like, even just when we keep talking about the flashbacks, they are so insanely young in the first couple of seasons and dealing with all that. And I feel like it wasn't until this season where a lot of them were really going into the Upside Down, really battling these, characters or villains, except for Will, obviously. Will was in the Upside Down when he was 11, 12 years old. So it is always cool, especially like you said in the beginning of us talking, that we kind of like grew up with the characters, and I just loved throughout this season and just all the seasons in general, just seeing how everyone evolves and just becoming more mature. And I think that ending with the graduation was just kind of just a perfect close to the chapter. I also loved how they ended it with like a D&D campaign, because that is exactly how the show started, down to the literal sprinkler in the front lawn at the Wheeler house. That is like first episode 1, and right before Will gets taken. So I loved how they kind of not foreshadowed, just kind of reference back to that. Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was cool is back to what I was saying earlier, but how as much as we watched them grow up, we grew up. And it makes you realize, especially with the ending scene, watching Holly and her friends, Derek and all of them, play, Dungeons and Dragons, like, Mike turns around and realizes that they're following in his footsteps. And he's watched her grow up at the same time. At least it's how I took it. And I thought it's a really, really cool just look back on the show as a whole, is like the steps kind of, the same path has been taken by, I guess, both Wheelers,
Yeah, no, I definitely like how they did that too. Just like the ending, in general, when Mike's just looking down on all the kids, and you kind of just see right before they all ran downstairs, you see just all the kids putting their books on the shelf, like they're closing that chapter and kind of opening a new one. So it goes back to watching everyone grow up and just seeing yourself through, your younger siblings, through younger kids. And definitely I think that I was nervous after the fight and the flash, like the time jump, how they were going to go about that. I kept being like, I hope it doesn't end right here. But I think they kind of covered all the boxes on each character, with like the older kids like Jonathan, Nancy, Steve, and Robin, and then Hopper and Joyce, getting engaged. Everyone just kind of got their story played out for the rest of the show. So I was nervous about that, but I think they handled everything. I think they kind of checked all the boxes, at least in my opinion.
No, I agree. And just kind of the significance of, Hopper and Joyce's, chapter now continuing in Montauk. Like we said when we were walking the movies, that's where it's supposed to take place. But just seeing how everyone, I guess, is going to progress with the rest of their lives. I mean, we're not going to see anything after this. We see the 2 to 3 film and animated show, and I think they said they're going to do a spinoff in the world, but something completely different. But, all these characters' chapters are closed. Like, they really did nip everything in the butt. And at first, people were like, how are you going to do this in 2 hours? How are you going to do this in 2 hours? And I was one of those people who was skeptical. I'm like, there's rumors of 5 people dying. You got to wrap up everyone's character arc. Like, you have to be Vecna. The kids have to come back. What's going to happen to the military? You have a lot on your plate. And yeah, the time jump definitely helps, especially with the graduation part. I mean, but everything got nipped really before that to just lead to the little moments of, this is what's happening in this future. Steve's a baseball coach now, which honestly it makes sense though. I mean, from somebody who, coaches hockey, I can kind of relate to that. I mean, he wants to have kids. He wants to have a relationship with kids. I mean, he wants a family, 6 little nuggets. I'm going to quote him on that, but he wants to, I guess, enjoy that part of being an adult. And I guess, I kind of do relate to that. Like, I like coaching because, like, at one point, like, yeah, I'm going to want a family, I want kids. And I think that significantly shows how much mature, I guess, Steve has gotten. I mean, there's a lot of times where you can tell, like, all right, Steve is just not an adult yet. But the ending really does show that they are all growing up in their own ways. And it's the little things. I mean, you got to look at everybody differently on their dialogue and interactions, especially talking about, we're gonna see John, film movies and all this stuff now. Like, everyone's taken all these different career paths and life paths, and it just shows you that Hawkins is, the starting point of their journey, but everywhere else is going to be, their own little thing. Like Dungeons and Dragons. They start off somewhere, and then there's a finish line somewhere else. So they end their campaign somewhere else.
No, exactly. And just throughout the whole series, the whole show, I think that, Steve has had the biggest character arc, but his character arc really came to be like in seasons 1 and 2. So I feel like every other character never kind of veered away from who they were at the beginning. And I think it just kind of reigned true. And I haven't checked any social media opinions on anyone else's opinion on the finale. And I really don't think that would change my opinion. I just feel like the Duffer Brothers wrote each character extremely well. I don't think anyone was veered off of what they were supposed to be, and how everyone ends up is exactly how I honestly could have pictured them from season 1. So I like how they kind of haven't ruined any character, because I know a lot of shows ruin people's character arc. I know people think that with Will's whole storyline, or I know a lot of people give Robin like a tough time with her character, but I think that they all developed how they were supposed to develop and just wrapped it up how it was supposed to.
I agree, and especially with how long this show's been running, each of these characters are going to have their issues. We talked about Will earlier with some dialogue, some moments here and there, but like every character in the show is going to have that. You have so many episodes, a lot of time. Each episode's about an hour. Essentially, you're going to run into these issues where there's going to be the little things here and there where people aren't going to like. There's no such thing as a perfect down to frame show. And I agree with you. I think everyone did develop properly. I just want to say big thing before, we wrap up the episode. I want to talk about theories going into this. A lot of people had theories of, Eddie's going to come back as a vampire, this and that. And there was like a lot of, I wouldn't say evidence, but there was a lot of like interesting theories with that. You get the vampire reference at the end. I wonder if that was a little nod at that, because that was a very big thing going around. He gets killed by the demo bats. He's left in the Upside Down. A lot of people, I guess, looking at what happened to Henry, I guess, in the Mind Flayer and his backstory, but kind of getting corrupted by it. I wouldn't have been shocked if we saw like a corrupted Eddie. I'm just happy we didn't, because I don't want it where people who die come back, And I'm happy a lot of the theories were wrong. There was a lot of people thinking, I had my own theories, but I thought they weren't too far-fetched. But a lot of really weird ones out there that I'm very happy just did not. I'm very happy we kind of left not expecting what we were given overall with this episode.
Yeah, no, exactly. I honestly, watching Volume 1, I didn't predict plot lines that happen, but I had to feel like I kind of figured out that it was Max that left the note, at the Creel house, that she was in Vecna's mind with Holly, and I also figured out that Callie was the one that was in the room at first when they thought Vecna was in there. So I wasn't looking at a lot of theories going into the finale, because I was like, I'm so obsessed with the show. I feel like if I see a theory, I'm going to figure it out. And I honestly, even if I did, I feel like I wouldn't have figured it out. I don't think anyone could have figured it out. And I think that's honestly what makes a good show, is one that you can't predict, but it just all, makes sense in the end. Like, I wouldn't want something easy to figure out. And like you were saying, a lot of the theories were extremely far-fetched. I loved Eddie's character, but I would have not been happy if he somehow came back. That just wouldn't have made sense. Like, Dustin's character is feeling the emotional weight from his death, and that just kind of strengthens the relationship with him and Steve. Like, I think that, a lot of the theories are great and it's fun to theorize, but I'm happy they kind of didn't feed into any of those.
Yeah, it's kind of the toxicity of fan bases, because these theories people get caught up in, and they build up these expectations. Like, there's probably people out there, I saw a lot of people out there that really thought this was underwhelming and didn't like this. And I'm like, if you were expecting all these crazy things to happen, then that's kind of the issue. You got to see what their vision was and look back on what this show really was. And I feel like this was a very good finale for all the stuff that happened there. If you really think about season by season what has happened throughout the show, who has died, the conflict, the trauma, the conflicts within the family, the inner conflict, the character arcs, this was the finale that was supposed to happen. And I definitely want to highlight the other, biggest thing with this show is the music. I did not expect to hear, Iron Maiden at the end at graduation. I thought great shout. I mean, we get to see another little Easter egg with Indiana Jones, Raiders of Lost Ark. Like, just the pop culture throughout the film also encapsulates, because a lot of people felt like we were missing on the 80s vibes the past 2 seasons. You know, the time just you kind of felt like you didn't know where you were, you know? And it kind of made me fall in love with how it was season 1, where it was kind of that Goonies type of feel and everything, but they really encapsulated the time period that was going on. And that's the beauty of this show, especially since we are far away from, the 80s now, 40-something years later. I think that's just a highlight with this show. And, I hope in the future they don't milk this franchise too much. I know we're getting an animated show and a spinoff, but the one thing, I don't know if you agree or disagree with this, I don't want to see this end up like Star Wars, where Stranger Things loses its magic or feeling. Because, for example, especially since they reference Star Wars in here, I feel like this is good to bring up, but Star Wars had this magic when it came back. Everyone was hyped. The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and then it got to a point where it was only for kind of just sales and attention. And it got to a point where it wasn't even like magic anymore. Like, nobody cared that was coming out. People were complaining, and it just got to a point where stuff that was happening did not make sense. I know that's not the creator's fault. George Lucas sold to Disney. That's, Disney just doing their monopoly bull crap that they always do. But I don't want Netflix to start to do this with Stranger Things. I think after the next, animated show, their chapter's done. The spinoff is its own thing, so, I mean, that's not a bad thing. But hopefully we don't milk this. I wouldn't want to see the Upside Down across the world or even the United States of America. I feel like just leave it at best.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, you don't want to ring it out just because you can get people to watch it. That's kind of what takes, I guess, the magic away from a show. And I know a lot of people were giving problems that, it took them so long to release all of these episodes. Like, oh, it's only 8 episodes, not 9. It's just like, you need to take the show for what it is, not be upset if your theories aren't right. You can have your opinions on it. But at the end of the day, like, the people who are writing the show, the people who are getting paid to write the show, know the plot line and just everything more than we ever will. You can have your opinions, but you're not going to be able to enjoy a show if you're just expecting it to be one way or the other. You just have to take it for what it is. And I hope I'm right, but I really think that since this is like the Duffer Brothers franchise, that they're going to do their spin-offs, they're going to do the animated shows, but I think there's only so much they can do. And I think they kind of take pride in bigger bodies of work than the quantity of their work. So hopefully they don't prove me wrong, but I think when they do their spin-offs, it's going to be not for a while, first of all, and just it's going to make sense, and it's not going to really take away from what the show is supposed to be. At least that's what I hope,
Totally agree. But, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Did you like this finale? What are your thoughts on the series? What are some hot takes you have? Let's hear it all. I'm Brandon.
I'm Hailee.
Thanks for listening to Give Me Rent.